right, I think it's time that we're supposed to kind of kick this thing off. So welcome to this session. It's on credibility in social media. My name is Carolyn Kim, and I teach here in the Public Relations program within the Journalism and Integrated Media Department. And I am looking forward to just kind of talking with you guys about the world of social media, but specifically social media through the perception that people have of you, with what you're posting, with what you're doing, and what you're anticipating they're going to respond to you like. So some of the things I think that are important to keep in mind when looking at social media is how pervasive it is, how powerful it is. And in the world of public relations, we always take a lens of what does this mean for organizations. And whether you're here through the education perception of what's like in a class, or whether you're a business owner and looking at this as a brand, you can take away a lot of different details from this. For example, you can see that a lot of people are using social media to make decisions now. They will go to social media to determine whether they should have a relationship with your organization, whether they should purchase something from you, attend an event, join your church. Students use social media to determine which classes they want to go in based on what they're hearing about professors and the quality of the education they're going to get. You can also see that a lot of people put their feelings out on social media. One of the things that always grates against the PR person inside of me is the fact that 56% of people who tweet out complaints at organizations never hear back at all. It's just unanswered. And that kind of goes against the very fiber of what social media was created to do. Social media is to connect people. It started out with friends to friends, people wanting that relationship, a conduit in the virtual world to carry on a relationship. And now organizations, brands, classes, groups are entering this world, and we're kind of the foreigners in social media because we're not getting on there for friends. We're getting on there for very intended purposes, and we forget that it was about relationships. So we think that ignoring people is really going to work well, or perhaps forget that 74% of people are on there trying to figure out what you're about, and we don't properly convey that. We also, I think, estimate the people who are joining social media. We talk about the kids always being on social media, or teens, but the older groups are some of the fastest growing populations on social media right now. And you can look at different platforms. You can see that younger people are gravitating towards things like Snapchat or Instagram, the visual based, which we'll talk about. But wherever you're at, whatever organization or education you're in, if you're using social media, keep in mind it's about relationships, and people are going there to do something with that relationship. One of my favorite things that inspires me towards social media is the profound ability it has to make a connection. Even though I use social media primarily from a PR standpoint, primarily from a how can I connect you with an organization standpoint, I never forget that it's about touching someone's heart and soul. And I strongly believe you can do that through social media. Drescher has a fantastic book all about how social media has changed how we relate. And one of her core contentions is that social media has brought us back to a way of relating that was lost when we went to modern broadcast. Because social media isn't just about pushing your message out, it's about that two-way dialogue. It's about finding that connection with someone in a sea of multiple other connections. And I think that is important. It's not just something for friends to keep in mind, it's something for anyone who's using social media at all to keep in mind. And when businesses or education does this well, you will find a profound difference in the results you get from people online. So I passed out a handout just because I think it's always helpful, and I like solid takeaways. It's the afternoon. Let me grab one for you real quick. And in the afternoon, it can be hard to stay engaged, so I want everybody to be able to kind of track with what we're doing. No, my fault. And I kind of wanted you guys to think through, why are you in this session in the first place? Because that's going to help you walk away with a tangible plan. And what I want you to think through is the questions on this. I want you to share with someone next to you. You don't have to write it out if you want. You can if you do. But basically, what are your intentions behind being on social media? Now, this could be for your business. What's your organization's intention? If you're an educator, what is the intention you have of being on social media as a professor, or as a faculty member, or as an administrator? Perhaps you are starting a ministry. What's your point in being on social media? You always need to get back to that. I do a large number of consultings for small businesses and nonprofits. And usually the conversation starts out with, we need to be on social media, will you help us? Followed by, why do you want to be on social media? Well, because everyone's on social media. it's not a good enough reason, and that's going to really hurt you in the long run if you don't know. So think through just for a second why you want to be on social media, what you hope people are going to do because you're on social media. You're getting on it for a purpose. What are you thinking is going to happen? And ultimately, what are you hoping to contribute as an organization or an educator or a business? So think through that for a moment, perhaps share with the person next to you. All right. I think we could talk about this question a lot because this question actually drives a lot of conversation. Organizations can spend weeks figuring out why you're on social media, and that's going to change the entire approach you have. But today I want to take us into, once you know why you want to be on social media, how do you do that in a way that's perceived as credible? And then what actions can you take on social media? So kind of where we're heading is I want to talk with you about actions that you could expect on social media. I think sometimes it's a little ambiguous, especially when a PR person is going to tell you should measure that because you want to be accountable for what you're measuring. So we'll talk through that. Then I'm going to talk about specific dimensions of credibility. I recently did a national survey and found there are really 4 key areas you want to be looking at that people evaluate, whether consciously or subconsciously, about what you're posting. And then tactics you can use, and we'll have some Q&A at the end so each person can ask something specific if they're these are broad, trying to reach a lot of audiences. So essentially, when you're on social media, you're hoping to engage people. That is what happens. That's why you get on social media. That's why we call it social media. It's because you're interacting with people. And there are 3 types of actions you might be wanting to measure. Either people are going to make a decision because of what you're doing on social media, or they're going to support a cause because of what you're doing on social media, or they're going to do some sort of purchasing. And I know that can sound like maybe you don't fit into one of those categories, but I'm going to go through all 3 and kind of talk through what those might look like. So the first one, making decisions. That is very simple, and I would say a lot of us actually anticipate people make decisions based on the information we put out there. You might be encouraging people to sign up for a free trial. You might want them to get a newsletter, visit a location, attend an event. As a professor, I might want them to be reading an article, to be posting a response, to be thinking through what an assignment means to them. I want them to come to some conclusion based on what I've put out there. And the whole point of being there is to help people make these decisions. So maybe that's where you fall. Some organizations or people will have multiple objectives, multiple reasons for being on social media. But you really want to think through, is it a cognitive objective? Do I have something that I want them to do in their mind to make a decision, to be informed? You might actually want them to go beyond that. A second level tier would be not just being informed about something, but supporting a cause or taking an action because of it. Maybe you want them to champion a cause for you. A lot of times when I work with nonprofits, they're trying to get brand ambassadors. They're trying to get grassroots movements started. Maybe they want legislation passed. Maybe they want their homeless ministry to get more attention. And to do that, they're hoping that the people on social media will start talking about their content as well. A lot of times you're going to hear people say, oh, we just need to create a viral video. It's really not that easy, but they're really going for people, let's just get people to support our cause. That's what we need. So they're going for cause-based something. And a cause could be around your organization. It could be around a concept in education. It could be around a ministry. There's so many ways. But when you're wanting them to take an action, not just a decision, but an action, you're going for a cause. And the hardest one to get, but I think what people really want, is a purchase of some kind. And it does not just have to be monetary. This is not just retail. It's when they exchange something of value and you're giving them something back. So sometimes in education, we will use social media to get people to come to a school. There will be social media pages all about the institution that's really an admissions conduit. And in a sense, we're hoping they're going to purchase an education through the program. You might be wanting sponsorships. So my husband works for a child advocacy organization, and a huge goal is to get people to sponsor the children. In a sense, that's a purchase. It sounds weird to consider it that, but when you're trying to say on social media, here's what we want to do, if you're hoping eventually someone parts with money for something you're doing, whether it's supporting a ministry, sponsoring a child, getting an education, or buying a product, that's a purchase decision. It's the hardest one to make happen, but I think that's in everyday life. So there's 3 categories. You're either going to be looking at having decisions made, having causes supported, or having a purchase of some kind. But the real question we get down to is, why does this work for some organizations and not for others? when there's multiple people competing for that donation or that decision or that advocacy, how come some work and how come others don't? What makes it so brand communities are really active and really support you and other ones just kind of fall silent? And I think it all comes down to the credibility, to the type of community you have. How much do they believe in who you are? So today's goal is that all of you can walk away with a credible plan for social media. Wherever you're at, whatever reason you're on social media, that was question 1. I want you to be able to come away with some idea of what you could do next to help the credibility of your organization through social media. And that drives us into question 2, which is coming up with what we call a SMART objective. So it's going to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. That's SMART. And this is what you would want to have happen through social media. It would be really good to come up with just one. So typically I ask, again, I do a lot of consulting for social media, and people will say, we want to increase our social media presence. That's not a SMART objective. One, social media is so many things. Are you talking Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube? Pick a platform, be specific. Measurable, what do you want to see increased? A lot of times people will say, we want 20,000 followers. Even if you have 20,000 followers, what does that mean? How does that help you? So I really encourage a deeper level measurement. What are you going for? And that'll go back to what you're hoping the audience does. Is it a decision? Is it a purchase? Is it an advocacy? Because you can measure all of those things. You want to put a time frame on there. The best thing for a PR person is when there is no time frame, because we can say, oh, we're still in process, we're still going. It's year 3, but we've got it. So you really want to put a time frame. Is it in the next 30 days, 90 days, over the next year? So question 2 on your handout is think about one SMART objective you might have. You'll want to put in a date. You'll want to pick a specific platform. Keep in mind why you said you're going to get on social media in the first place and what you're hoping to have happen. What do you want the audience to do? What platform are you on, and when would you like to see that happen by? Realistic is always a good thing just to hit on. If you don't have a presence yet on a platform, don't try to break the top 10 brands. Don't try to get 20 million followers. Don't have a viral video. Do something realistic, because you can do incremental. So go ahead and take a few minutes, think through a SMART objective that you want to write down. So that might be something you're going to refine as we go through the rest of the time. But I kind of want to give you a backdrop of the study that led to what I'm presenting today. It was a national survey throughout the country, really examining the perceptions people held of organizations that were on social media. And we looked at all the different kinds of platforms. I'm going to have some really boring tables that I'll periodically have up on my slides. But just to give you an idea, we had a variety of age ranges, ethnic representations, education levels, income levels, religions. We kind of tried to get a cross-section because we really wanted a broad sample of what makes an organization credible on social media. This happened just in December, so it's fairly relevant. With social media, everything changes. I was giving a presentation about 2 months ago, and it was on Facebook, how to have a good organizational presence. In the middle of my presentation, Facebook changed their entire layout. So, I'm really hoping this holds true for a while, but I think there's some interesting things for brands. What was found is that there's really kind of 4 dimensions of credibility at play in social media. If you're an organization and you're on social media, people will kind of be looking at your trustworthiness, your expertise, what I call invitational rhetoric, and I'll explain that, and your personal interaction. There's a long history of understanding what makes someone credible. We've looked at that for years. Trustworthiness and expertise usually top the charts. In almost any study, you're going to see that represented. Some people call it a few different things. For example, sometimes expertise is likened to charisma, the ability to be a credible person, but also someone who attracts you in because they seem credible. Trustworthiness could also be called trustworthy, so they kind of change it. So if you've seen it in a different one, it's the same thing. These 2 are new. They're things that haven't really been brought out before, and I think that's due to the nature of social media. We are in a new landscape. Organizations can't interact in the same way they always have because social media does an interesting blending of mass and personal. So you're doing a mass communication, but it's personal at the same time. And it's not just a medium. It's not like reading something through a newspaper on a broadcast. It's a source and a medium at the same time because they view you as the organization, yet they're looking at it through social media and evaluating how well you did your social media presence. So we've blended source and medium, we've blended personal and mass, and that's led to new things that people expect from you if you're going to be on social media. So trustworthiness really is about your accuracy, your dependability, and your honesty. It's their conception that when you post something, no matter where it is, they can believe that it's true. that it's accurate, that it's unbiased. And so a lot of people will say, you know, I could trust this organization if they post, but I'm not going to trust this one because I've seen a couple times where they post information too soon and they have to retract it. Therefore, they're not as trustworthy anymore. In most studies, trustworthiness is the most important dimension in credibility. The interesting thing I found was it's still very important, but it was the least influential in this study. Almost it seemed as if people expected you to be trustworthy if you were going to be out there. If you burn them, then your trustworthiness is gone. But generally, they're anticipating that you are trustworthy. If you're posting on something on social media, they tend to anticipate that it's true, unless you've given them a reason to not be true. So it's not a prime thing that they're evaluating when they're picking between organizations. But it's still important. Obviously, I'm not telling you don't be trustworthy. Expertise. Incredibly important. It has to do with your distinctive insight into it, whether you're talking about your education and that subsect, whether you're talking about ministry or nonprofits or business, whatever you're talking about, they expect you to be an expert, to have some sort of distinctive insight, not just repeat what everything else has already been said. They want you to be a thought leader. They want you to be innovative, not just providing information, but changing how information is provided and how to use that. And an interesting thing here, which I kind of hit on with the idea of the blended source and medium, is they expect a professional appearance. So if your profile is not up to date, has the wrong size image, is blurry, has a spelling error like I just did on my slide, if your professional appearance is lacking, then they will believe your expertise is lacking. It's not just, oh, it's okay because it's social media, you must be busy. It's, you're less credible. You must not be an expert. Invitational rhetoric comes from a communication theory that is based in the idea that each person should have a voice, that each person has dignity and inherent ability to make their own decisions. And so it's kind of an open concept to communication. And it makes a lot of sense to me that this would be a huge value in the world of social media, because social media is designed to give people voice. It's designed to let them have a platform and to share their thoughts. Now, when organizations come on, they expect that you want to hear from them. They want to have an active role. And there's a whole concept going on in social media that people want to be active participants in the future focus of your organization or the future focus of how you're going to teach and the type of content. They want to play a part. And that's all with invitational rhetoric. They expect you to value what they're saying. So people in the survey that I had would respond saying, you know what, this organization or this brand, they really care about me. They care about the community. We share the same values, which is very interesting when you're thinking about the fact that they glean all of this from what you're putting on social media. I share your values because of something I posted, because of my response to you, because I used your name when I typed a response on Twitter. It's very interesting. And then personable interaction. A lot of people said they will take a company or an educator as more credible if they feel like it's a real person on the other side. The tone that you're using is approachable. It feels like someone they know, that they actually think there's a relationship with you instead of the pre-programmed responses. And timely responses was huge. It topped the charts. Remember on the opening slides, I was sharing how 56% of people never hear back from complaints. That really damages the credibility of the organization because people want to hear back quickly. If you watch how natives of social media, as in the individuals, not organizations, interact, people respond very quickly to each other. You post on a friend's wall, you're going to hear back that day. I saw one report that said people expect to hear within 90 minutes from brands once they post. That's a lot. That's a lot of pressure. But when I did this study, I found some people responded 4 months later. That's a little late to be getting back to the people. There's also, in addition to these categories of credibility, I chose to look at social media as platform genres instead of a specific platform because platforms rise and fall. One's going to be great today and it's going to be off the radar tomorrow. And I wanted to have a longer term view that organizations could use with social media. So I kind of broke it up with multimedia, which would be things like Facebook, Google+, LinkedIn, where you're going to see photos and video and text all conglomerated. Microblogging, which is like Twitter. Visual, which would be a Pinterest or an Instagram, and then video like YouTube, GodTube, those kind of ones. So I looked at those platform genres, and I looked at the dimensions of credibility that were coming out. Yes. Visual would be Instagram or Pinterest, just basic pictures going up. What was interesting, and I think what is being inherently repeated throughout how the multimedia and the microblogs are changing their platform layouts, and what other people have found is that the visual is constantly driving people, whether that's video-based or visual platform. That's where younger users are migrating towards. That's where brands are seeing increasing interactions. I think it was, I can't remember the exact statistic, it was hugely more percent of interaction if you put a photo up with your tweet. So something like 300 times more interaction, I believe, was one statistic I saw. And on Facebook, I've tested it out. I'll post a status, just words, and maybe people who really care about me, like my mom, will like it. No comments at all. I'll post a photo, and it goes wild. Lots of people are interacting. It could be the stupidest photo in the world. It could be what I had for dinner, which no one should care about. But for some reason, it gets interaction because we're going visual. People want to see that, and people's attention span and time is waning. They don't want to read. They want to see something and respond quickly. Yeah?
Facebook actually chooses not to show things without pictures and videos also.
Yes.
They're actually just not presenting those all the time.
Exactly. Facebook has a great news feed function. They evaluate everything you post, particularly if you're from an organization. They run it through their algorithm to determine how important your content is, and they base it on, it used to be simple. They had like 3 factors. Now they have 100,000 with the one they just launched. And it has all sorts of variables. For example, does someone interact with you regularly? Is it a visual? How long has the post been up? How many people are in your community? And that's why every single one of us, if we pulled up Facebook right now, we'd have a different news feed because they're running a mathematical equation on every person. And that's why organizations also really don't want to post content if you're not getting interaction. Some people say, well, I'm just going to keep posting because I know it's going to help. It's not. It's going to damage you. Because if you keep posting and no one's interacting, that's going to give a negative amount into that algorithm, and they're going to stop showing information. Somewhere between 80 and 90%, I've seen different statistics of people never return to a page on Facebook. They simply look at their newsfeed. They're not going to your organizational page. So unless you leverage that algorithm and have your content out there in a credible way, you're never going to be seen again by these people, which is why I really encourage clients not to just go on how many likes you have on your page. You could have likes, but no one's seeing your content. So some key findings is actions and dimensions. Invitational rhetoric, the concept of everyone's welcome here. Everyone has value. We want to have an informational dialogue with you. That is the key component that led people to support causes. So if you have an objective where you want people in your group to either champion, become brand ambassadors, to start posting about your content, really think about invitational rhetoric as a dimension of your credibility. Expertise, however, was the key dimension that led people either to make decisions or to purchase something. So those 2 dimensions played the strongest impact. And it's not that you ever want to have one of the dimensions, the 4, lacking, but if you're having a problem on social media with one of these, you should check out that area of your credibility. Are you invitational? Do people feel like they can interact with you? Or are they not purchasing something from you or donating to you or getting involved because they're not sure you're an expert? You haven't positioned yourself well as the innovative thought leader that you actually are. Expertise out of all of them had the highest influence on the perception of credibility. One of the things I looked at in the study was, is a brand going to be viewed as more credible because they're on Facebook? A lot of studies say 80% of consumers would rather connect with a brand on Facebook. So maybe if you're on Facebook, you're more credible, hands down. What I found was it didn't really matter the platform as much as it mattered what you were posting and how well you managed your profile design. That look and the content you were posting out there impacts whether you're credible. If you're going to be on Twitter, and some groups have said, you know what, Twitter is right for us, it's where we want to be. That's great, you're not going to be hurt as long as you do it well. Other groups have said, just in case, we're going to be on every single platform, and it really damages them because they can't manage all of those in a credible way. So, question number 3. Thinking through your organization now, we've talked about the dimensions, we've talked about invitational rhetoric and personal interaction and expertise and trustworthiness. Those are the 4. And platforms, where do you think might be the greatest opportunity for you? All of us have room we can grow. Social media is changing all the time. When I looked at mine, I found out, I really could do more invitational rhetoric with my personal brand because I wasn't really trying to build a lot of conversation as much. I thought I was, but when I looked at it through, does the public perceive that they're being heard? Does they perceive that I want them involved? I don't know. And then I picked a platform that I felt was most important to my brand, and I'll usually do that with organizations too. Which platform is most important to you, and which dimension of credibility do you think you could build? So kind of think through that real quick. Take about 30 seconds and just jot those down. The interesting thing is I juggle between two worlds, trying to be an educator and a PR professional at the same time. So I worked on invitational rhetoric for my professional brand, trying to get out there and encourage people to think through those things. But as an educator, I had to work a lot on my ability to position myself as an expert, which sounds interesting, but you have to be so careful because you're an expert, you're a professor, so what are you gonna post, and then how does it look with your design and everything? So kind of be willing to challenge yourself. I had my ego hurt a little when I was like, oh, I don't look like an expert. That's painful. But I think it's really important to take a realistic assessment, not of how you feel your social media is, but how your audience might feel your social media is. And that's where we get into tactics. Within public relations, we refer to tactics as the nuts and bolts, the things you're going to actually do. Now that we have gone through figuring out why you're on social media in the first place, and then coming up with a key smart objective and saying, here's the dimension we want to focus on, and here's the platform, how are you going to do that? And so in this study, we asked people, could you please identify what things brands do on social media that you think are really effective and really good to do, and which things are really annoying and do you wish they would stop? We phrased it differently to not bias it, but that's essentially what we were asking. It's a little blurry, but what we found out with positive things, people liked community highlighting, dialogue building, engagement speed, events, products, promotions, functionality, news. Other is just things that really didn't relate, but I was counting because I was curious how many people said it. So community highlighting, that is when a brand or a professor or whoever you are with your social media talks about the people within your community, what you're about. It's your ethos. So Starbucks will often highlight a drink that someone orders, or they will highlight someone who posted something about Starbucks. They'll retweet it and say, we're so glad Sarah enjoyed her drink today. That is them doing community highlighting. They're not talking necessarily about their products. They're not trying to sell something, though ultimately that's their goal. They're trying to say, we as a brand have a culture here. See this culture, be part of this culture. Lots of people are talking about this culture. We want you in it. That's community highlighting. Dialogue building is intentional efforts by organizations on social media to start conversations or be part of conversations. You'll see this a lot with hashtags because hashtags are now everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. They will use hashtags that relate to their brand but also extend past their brand. And I'm going to show you an example at the end with Target. They used one during the holidays called #MyKindOfHoliday. And they used it to talk about the things they were selling, but people took off with that hashtag and they would post the pictures of their kids crying in Santa Claus's lap and say, my kind of holiday. Or secrets of how to make meals within 2 hours so everything is done, my kind of holiday. And people started talking. That was all about dialogue building. And people say they really like it when brands ask questions, create conversations, and then interact again. Some brands have tried to do dialogue building where they'll throw out a question, you never hear from them. Lots and lots of people are talking, but the brand never responds, never interacts. That's not actual dialogue building, that's kind of narcissism. Engagement speed. We talked about that already. It's getting back to the person in a timely manner. Events, products, and promotions were huge. You can see a lot of people actually said it was the #1 category for how often it was cited as we really like this. What you'll see on the negative side is they also hate being advertised to. And that's a fine line. So they like hearing about what you're doing. They like getting free stuff from you. They like knowing about what's coming up, but they do not want to be pushed on with advertisements. They don't want to feel like when they get on social media, they're getting the unpaid for subscription that causes them to have to be spammed before they can get to their friends' information. Functionality and profile design really related to how well brands did, and news and information was, are you going to be the first to tell me about something? Am I going to hear about it from you before anyone else? Is it going to be different than someone else, even if you're not the first? So community highlighting, here's an example of Starbucks. They talk about how different people like different types of coffee. And they'll post a picture with it and show you the different kinds and what it means. They get, I don't know if you guys can see, they had over 10,000 people like this. And by the time this goes off, it'll be over 800 shares. That's a lot of good for their brand. Because again, when Facebook evaluates, was this effective? It was effective because that many people interacted. Dialogue building. Here's the Target example. You can see it's #MyKindOfHoliday. Lots of favorites, lots of retweets. And if you were monitoring this hashtag during the holiday, it took off. It wasn't just related to Target. There were lots of posts that had nothing to do with Target. But Target was the initiator of this and really launched new ones each, I think it was like every 3 days you could find a new thing from Target, but they were interacting as well. And they would repost other people's My Kind of Holiday information. This is Tough Mudder. Some of my students do it. It terrifies me. They have intense things. But what they do to highlight their events is they will give everyone an orange headband if you run in one of their crazy exercises, and they wear it to work on Monday. So they'll post pictures of people at work on Monday with their orange headbands, or they'll put this kind of stuff up on social media, and everyone who is at events or who is training starts sharing it, and it starts creating this highlight around an event, but also a, hey, I belong here. I'm part of this organization. So it's not spamming. It's not, hi, sign up again. Hey, there's a discount to sign up. Have you signed up? It's more, you don't want to miss this because everyone else is. This is cool. This is what you want to be part of. When we asked about negative tactics, things people hated that brands were doing, they said they hated advertising and promotion. They hated being told to sign up, being told to pay for something, begged to adopt something. They didn't want that. They wanted part of a culture, but not to be pushed on. Profile design was part of it. Engagement quality was the #1 problem. And this goes into speed. Are you going to take forever to respond? But it also included things like you are posting information that doesn't relate to you at all, so you're trying to be an expert in something your organization is not about, and it makes me feel left out because I became part of your social media community to talk about what you're about. Why are you posting this other information? Or when you respond to me, it's very automated. In the world of PR, one of the favorite things we do is we watch crises because 1, we feel very good that it's not happening to us, and 2, we're trying to learn from it. So I think it was Pizza Hut. I could be wrong. Pizza Hut, Pizza House. They had someone post on their Twitter to the effect of, we really love your pizza. Thank you. The automated response came out as, I'm so sorry. Let us know how we can make this up to you. Which 1 makes you wonder, why is that your automated response? That's very sad. But 2, wow. The personal engagement, that's not there. So there's a lot of ways that organizations will sometimes pre-program content, and it can go very poorly, and that can relate to the engagement quality. So don't pre-program responses. Make sure you're personally responding. And then also be aware of what's happening in culture. So there's been several tragedies that will happen, and it's all over the news, and pre-programmed content is still being pushed out by brands. So there's a mass killing, and the brand is talking about the sale that's coming up the next day. Things like that will make you appear very unengaged, which you are if you are doing it that way, and make people feel like you're not a human being, not personal. So kind of a self-check, and this is something that I think is a really good phrase to go through. Think through one platform that you have, and think through, you can either check it right now or just kind of do an estimate. What do you think the public perception is? Are you interacting? Do you respond to people? Do you post content that is appropriate? Does it feel more advertising? How quickly do you respond? Does it appear that your organization is narcissistic? That is one of the biggest complaints by people who try to interact with organizations on social media. They want you to be about them, not you to be about yourself. So your job on social media is to advocate the mission and vision that you have, no matter what organization you are, because social media is about that relationship. So when you can be excited about the work you're doing, the products you're selling, the people you're serving, they can be excited. When you're simply trying to push your agenda on them, they're going to feel that you're very self-centered, that you're not interacting with them. So a quick self-assessment will kind of help answer that. It's question 4 on the blue column on the back of the page if you guys want to kind of look at that real quickly. So take a few minutes. All right, so we kind of want to bring these 2 areas together. We've talked about the dimensions of credibility that are important, and then I gave you a bunch of tactics that people like or don't like. And it's important to be able to connect the dimensions of credibility to specific tactics, because if you realize you're lacking in a certain area, what can you do about it? For example, when I realized, I don't really look like I'm very much of an expert, is there something I can do to help that, or just put out there, hey, I really know what I'm talking about? I don't know. Yeah, trust me. So the dimensions link with these specific tactics over here. It's a little blurry, but trustworthiness usually goes back to your ability to post news and information, because people, again, are going to you for, are you accurate, unbiased, trustworthy, honest? Those kind of things come out when you post information. So whether you're sharing the latest news in the industry, whether you are sharing information about a concept, whatever it is, that hits your trustworthiness. So if you feel people need to have that bolstered, share more information, whether that's self-generated or being one of the first to share it yourself. I wanted to amp that up with mine, and I did not have the time to write a blog every single day. What I did is I would wake up early for West Coast time. I always lost out to the East Coast people, and check the latest industry sites, and I would share one article a day and try to be the first person on the West Coast sharing that article within my sphere, because that would make me look trustworthy. I was someone sharing honest, unbiased information. It didn't look self-serving because it came from another source, yet it was on topic because it was all about PR or social media. So that's one thing you might do. If you're an organization, it is a good idea to have a blog to be an information source yourself. And it's also an idea to integrate other people. You want to think about maybe 60-40. Don't always share your own content, share other people's as well. But if you can position yourself as the one creating the news, creating the information, that's even more important. Expertise does hit on news and information, but it also goes to your events, products, or promotions. So as an educator, my product is my classes, or my ability to produce a written piece that students might read, or my involvement in the professional industry. I serve with the Orange County Board of Professionals with PRSA, Public Relations Society of America. So to bolster my expertise, I would talk about the events I was going to. I helped plan a lot of events, so instead of saying, please come to my event because I need my minimum, I would say, we have a great event coming. I'm so excited I was able to plan it. If you need more details, let me know. Something like that. Invitational, talking a little bit about, maybe you would feel connected with me because of how I said it. Maybe you would come. Even if you don't come, you know I'm involved with it. It positions me as someone who's an expert in the industry, an innovator, someone thinking that way. Personable interactions. Community highlighting is a great way to make your organization look personable. When I first became a professor, I was told that I had about 30 seconds, most likely 15, to make an impression on the class, and they would size me up within that first 15 minutes. And then it was on me to self-disclose, build a relationship, and help them do well in the class. That's quite daunting. What I found was they loved me posting pictures or talking about what they were doing. So I would tweet while they were doing a class assignment, take a picture and say, here's my amazing PR students working on a media relations plan. They would retweet it, they would be so excited, they would interact with me. It was a way for me to highlight them, highlight that I was an educator, they were part of my community, without me just talking about all the stuff I was doing. You have to it's a fine line. They don't like too much tweeting about them, but you know, it's there. Invitational rhetoric is dialogue building, and it's the antithetical to personable interactions, which was the negative part. So people said they really didn't like the personable interactions where people tried to be personal and it sounded weird, like the brands that were pre-programmed. The dialogue building is different. It's responding quickly. One of the survey respondents said they highlighted Capella University was the organization they talked about, and they said, you know, I really like it because I was sick one time, and I posted on the university social media site, hey, does anyone know what's good for the flu or something like that? The university responded, hey, person's name, we're so sorry, hope you're feeling better soon. They didn't try to shoot like, have you gone to the health center, here's all the resources. They just said, oh, we see you as a person, so sorry you're sick, and they used their name. That meant a lot to them as a user, that they were seen by the organization. I've had students respond to me saying, you know, it really was nice when I posted something and you responded and just said, hey, I hope you're doing better, or you saw me later in class. It's because it builds a dialogue. You can interact. Brands like to do that too. Today I was having a horrible experience where I forgot my password and couldn't log in to one of the products I purchased, so I contacted the company, they got it resolved, and I tweeted them. They started interacting with me. I said, thanks so much. No problem, it was great. Let us know when you need any other help. And I've had great success on Twitter with brands. And people start talking on the same conversation I'm having with the brand, which is weird because I don't know them, but it builds a dialogue, and suddenly we're really close friends because we like the same company and the company likes us and everything's going golden. That's what you want with invitational rhetoric. You want to build a conversation and have it grow and more people become part of it. So we've covered a lot of different concepts. We have 4 dimensions of credibility that you really want to make sure you're nailing. Trustworthiness, expertise, invitational rhetoric, and personable interactions. There's 3 kinds of actions that you're most likely trying to get people to do. And based on your dimensions, you're either trying to get them to do decisions, support, or purchase something on a kind of platform using positive tactics. So we have a lot of different elements, but I think that's one of the important reasons to have strategy sessions like this. Social media is free, and it's often viewed as super simple because it's free. It is not super simple. It takes a lot of strategy, a lot of intentionality, and for organizations or people who are choosing to use social media in a public way versus a friend-to-friend way, you have to really think through what you're communicating, even non-verbally or non-interaction-wise. So, for example, one group, I won't name the group being reviewed on the survey, but the people said, I really don't trust their credibility because when they post something, the links are always broken. Or when they post something, the link takes me to their donate page instead of the page about the cause. So things like that. You don't realize it. You were moving quickly. You were trying to do your job, but it damages you. Another group only posted when they were hosting an event. Even though it was a free event, that's the only time they posted. And people said, I don't think they actually care about a relationship with us, which is interesting. I couldn't have paid for better responses to my survey. People were saying from their heart, this is how I feel when this organization does this. So you have to be so careful. Expertise and invitational rhetoric are really important to those actions. So the very first question, the very first thing we started out with was, why do you want to be on social media? What are you hoping to see happen? Most likely, if it's not happening, it's going to go back to you needing to build your expertise in invitational rhetoric a lot. You might have work to do in the other areas as well, but those two really make people want to interact with you more because they go back to social media. Social media is about relationship. So if you're not inviting that relationship and giving them value as a social media member, they're not going to want to interact. Visual and video platforms are really the ones that are taking off. A question I'm always asked is, what's next? What's the next social media platform? I don't know what it's going to be, and I don't know how long it's going to be here for. There's already predictions coming out that in the next 5 years, Facebook might lose 80% of its users. And there's questions about whether something like Snapchat will be the next big thing for brands. I can't tell you because it rises and falls, but I can tell you it's going to be visual. People love visual. They love the quick. They love the instant. They want to be able to interact and engage quickly, and brands are really picking up on that. So there's realities. Consider the cost. No platform is free. I think we all know that, but I always like to stress why I want to be on social media. You have to realize there's always a cost, even if it's your time. Your time is valuable, and you have to be able to invest it in the platform to appear credible. If you start a platform and do not invest the time, you will damage your reputation more than you realize. The cost of poorly performed social media can be great to your brand. It can damage you for a long time, and it's very hard to build back up. Like I said, Facebook is one example that's using that algorithm to determine whether they're going to show your content, but all social media are going towards that because social media is only going to survive if it can serve its public, and its public are individuals. So if brands take over and get to perform poorly and aren't penalized, social media becomes less relevant. No one wants that. So platforms are going to penalize brands who don't perform well. Understanding your social purpose and who your audience is really important. So who are you? What are you about? What drives you? What's your vision? That should be exciting. That should be something that's contagious. That's what you want to take into social media. That's where you want to build your community around. I really like this quote: to be inspired is great, to inspire is incredible. I think that's really true with social media. Social media catches the eye of almost every business owner I've ever talked to because it seems like it can do great things. It seems like it's a silver bullet. But what's better is when your organization can use social media to inspire others. And I think a lot of us here today can do that, whether that's students in our courses, whether that's the incredible ministries and businesses and organizations we're working for. There are powerful things that can happen if you get a platform like that and if you can inspire people around you. So I just wanted to share some of the examples. Yes, all women. Hashtag recently took off, if you've been following that at all. And it's a really interesting way that people have given voice to women's issues. The up map, wow, it's really dark. It's an example of how the tweets took off around the nation within a matter of days. And then it spread over to Europe, and you can see where it was most popular. And it broke into news. That's when something goes viral. That's what every organization wants. But the thing is, this isn't about just an organization. It's about a cause. Now, organizations are getting highlighted now who are being involved with it, who are championing that idea because they're around a movement, an idea, and a community. And that's what you want to be. What is your identity, your movement, your vision? Not what are you selling? What do you need people to buy? It's bigger than that. Save Saeed. I don't know how many of you are following her or her husband. Her husband was imprisoned in Iran, I believe. And she has gotten more attention than I think any wife I've ever seen with someone who's been imprisoned for his faith. And she's done it through social media. And she's now been on countless media outlets, getting tons of attention. This picture she took was a wave of people from across the nation who followed like manner and put it up on social media and have signed petitions. It's one more example of how social media can give voice to people. Compassion International has an incredibly strong Pinterest page. Pinterest wasn't that big about 2 years ago, and now tons of brands are on it. They're actually able to make tangible conversions into their bottom line through Pinterest, but that's not why they started it. I did a study with them. Their whole purpose for starting it was to give a place for their community to talk to each other and to share their experiences. And it was really interesting because they have some boards that are what you call joint boards, so multiple people can post, and they have people who just love sharing about what they've done or the letters that they've written. So maybe a Pinterest board is a great way for you to go. Charity Water has been named one of the best Instagrams for any brand. And they do great. I don't know if you guys can see it, but they have 216,000 followers just because of visuals. Visuals are catching on, and you can do a little bit of text and a hashtag, but they are showing what they're about. They're showing how you can be excited and be part of what they're doing, and that's what everyone should be doing. This is Mike Erie. He did a sermon series on Sex, God, and Power, I think is what it was called. I might be getting that slightly wrong, but it was huge. It was packed out. The church couldn't accommodate everyone. So they did podcasts, and they did social media, and they had you able to text in information, and they used social media to enhance the ministry they were doing. And it wasn't awkward at all because they weren't forcing social media. It was a natural outpouring. The conversation continued. Mike Erie is also on social media platforms with his own personal presence. I mean, it's personal and it's public at the same time. So if you're a public figure, you're not really going to post your personal information, but he's on there and connecting with people and responding to conversations. So maybe you're a church looking for a way to do something like that. Whatever it is, I have to go back to what John Dyer says. He says social media is the most powerful, transformative technology mankind created. I think that is extremely true. Social media has taken it so that you, as an organization, can go into the living room with someone else or their phone, which happens to be the number one activity people do in the morning, is log on their phone, check their Facebook. You have a chance to help people catch the vision for what you're doing, whether that is education, whether that is helping the poor, whether that is a ministry, whether that's anything else. There's a reason you're doing what you're doing. Find that story, find that passion, take that into social media in incredible ways, in ways that make people feel heard, in ways that make you look trustworthy. Position yourself as an expert, someone that they can believe in, that's an expert within your field. You are going to go far. You're going to be able to get that community around you because that creates the perfect storm. That's where social media takes off. Now, the thing about social media is it's always very broad until you can answer specific questions for people. And I know this is an interesting audience because we have a lot of different groups represented. So I left some time at the end for questions if you guys have some. And if, oh good, I will start with you. If you also have any questions, I have my contact information on the pages as well. Yes?
This is kind of coming from both me as a social media user and as someone who manages professional pages.
Yeah.
Have you seen an influence on the success of professional pages, since I feel like Facebook has kind of bombarded itself with paid advertisements, and so now we're kind of competing with trying to integrate into the feed, but not be like classified under all those annoying paid advertisements that they now have. And how do you like recommend dealing with that?
There's been a huge change. There was a huge outcry, especially with nonprofits, because that hits the dollar amount a lot if you have to pay for advertising. Facebook's response, of course, was we're trying to make it more complementary to the person and what they want, and we're basing it on the algorithm, but you can pay if you want to be seen, so it doesn't seem like it's all about complementary. But what I have done for clients, and what I've seen a number of other professionals do, is always go back to why you're on there in the first place. And your whole goal will be to get your community talking, and if your community's talking, it doesn't matter what the algorithm is because it's gonna look important. It hits you, most people dropped, I would say probably about half your reach, I would estimate, if not more, for some brands. But what you want to do is create something that's going to jump that. So a competition is usually a great way to do that, or bringing in like an expert chat time so there's a lot of interaction. Something that will switch that algorithm over for you, and then just really focus on understanding what measurement you're going to look for. Look beyond just the reach and track, are you going to do a conversion to some sort of event or a letter or something like that? It did hit it, but if you can integrate your group to talk more, it helps. And also if you bring in your Facebook into offline. So anytime you do something in person with people, reference your Facebook, reference that they can sign up, have it at an event as a live wall, stuff like that. But yeah, it hit a lot of people, and there's a lot of unhappiness with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. Other questions? Yeah.
What are your thoughts on a leader having an assistant posting on social media in their stead?
I think that's a fantastic idea. I think a lot of leaders are very busy. I think your assistant has to be very well trained, and often I recommend a couple things. One, you want a user policy so they understand how to respond. I recommend that the leader takes maybe 1 to 2 hours a month and creates a document with a lot of posts that they themselves think, you know, this is good, this is my voice. And then the person has something they can pull from and build towards, so it's not them pulling out of thin air. But what I've noticed when I work with some high profile people is there's just no time. So either they're gonna have an assistant do it or it's not gonna happen at all. So I would definitely recommend having someone who is savvy with how to use it. If you're a leader, you should approach it like your brand. So you should have your personal page, you should be tracking metrics, things like that. But if you have someone who can do it, I would do it in a heartbeat. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
Kind of along the lines of the hashtag campaigns.
Yeah.
I know that, hashtag originated from Twitter and has also been really successful in Instagram, but now you see Facebook and Pinterest adopting it. If we focus more on Facebook and not Twitter,
Yeah.
can a hashtag campaign still be successful?
Yeah.
Do you see like a lot of hashtag use, like Facebook using hashtag now more?
Definitely. Yeah, the Save Saeed one was actually mainly done through Facebook, interestingly enough. It is taking off. I loved watching it because at one point Facebook vowed that they would not do hashtags because they were not Twitter and the hashtag was going to die. And now everyone's doing hashtags. So it definitely can take off. You want to make sure anytime you use a hashtag, there has to be a good reason for it, and try to make it very customized. There's a lot of examples of hashtags gone poorly when someone hijacks a hashtag, but I think it does take off, and I think if you can blend it like the Save Saeed did with a visual, it's even more powerful. Yeah.
What are some good strategies for when you have to build this credibility and user base up from scratch?
Yeah, so brand new profile. I would typically pick 1 or 2 platforms that you think are going to be the most manageable. I ask a lot of my clients to consider where they're going to pull content from, because whatever profile you have to have something that you're feeding into it, so you want to come up with one that's very usable. I tend to launch it around something that's going to be an event with a brand or an organization, because you're going to have a lot of people all at once, and that'll help it start going viral a little bit. So anything where you're going to have a bunch of people involved, that's the time to launch it. And just because people like free stuff, run a contest with it. Most platforms have specific rules for the kind of contest and how it works. But if you can give away something free for a little while, it'll help build very quickly. And during that season, while you're running the contest, you should have pre-programmed your idea of what you're going to post that's positioning you as an expert, making you credible, trustworthy. I advise people to come up with a content calendar. I don't know if you guys use those very often, but you can make a very easy one in Excel. You run the date across the top, you run the platforms down the line, and you just put in all the stuff you're going to post. I would have that for at least a month out if you're launching a brand new thing, because it's shocking how much time it can take to upkeep, and then you can run something like that. It's a great question. Other questions? All right, well, my contact information is there. I'm at Carolyn May Kim on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Pinterest, on YouTube. So, if you want to get in touch, feel free, and thank you guys so much. I'll be around if you have questions afterwards.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.